You owe no one an explanation when you choose to leave. Not those who showered you with affection, nor those who took advantage of your kindness, and certainly not the ones who only cherished you, under the illusion that you would never walk away. What if the most powerful departure you could make was one that left no explanation? Machiavelli grasped a truth that many are too sentimental to confront. Loyalty, he suggested, is often merely a prelude to betrayal. The more graceful and memorable your departure, the more indelibly you imprint on those who believed they could keep you tethered forever. There exists a unique form of strength in vanishing without a word, in providing silence where they anticipated pleas, and in showing indifference when they sought closure. For when you leave without mercy, you're not just exiting their lives. You are embedding yourself in their thoughts, lingering there long after you're gone. Machiavelli never held loyalty in high regard for its own sake. He valued its utility. If a relationship no longer contributes to your empowerment, your development, or your command, then dragging it along is not an act of honor. It's sheer folly. Give us a like if you learned at least one new fact that genuinely changed your perspective today. You want to stay ahead of the curve in science and history? Subscribe now and make sure you don't miss any critical updates. Many perceive betrayal as rooted in deceit, infidelity, or manipulation. Yet, the most impactful betrayal is not chaotic. It is serene, it is poised, it is understated. It's about departing with elegance, just when they believed you would remain. In truth, people hold you in higher esteem once they realize they were never entitled to your company. When you linger too long in draining environments, you become ordinary, predictable, and expected. However, when you choose to leave at the peak of their need, at the height of their emotional investment, you transform into something extraordinary. You become legend. This embodies Machiavelli's principle of beautiful betrayal. Leaving without mercy is not an act of cruelty. It is the ultimate demonstration of control. It transcends anger. It transcends revenge. It is about reclaiming your worth in silence, allowing your absence to resonate louder than any apology could ever achieve. Most individuals attempt to make their exits palatable. They offer explanations, they shed tears, they wrap their departure in gentle words and diluted truths. Machiavelli would scoff at such attempts, for soft exits never carve out sharp memories. Imagine walking away from someone who thought they had you forever, leaving them in shock and awe. And sharp memories are power. When someone wrongs you, even in subtle ways, they are not merely breaking trust, they are testing your limits. If you choose to stay, to explain, to attempt repair, you fail the test. The real question was never whether you can forgive them. It was whether you can walk away while they still desire you. And here's the twist. The individuals you leave without mercy do not simply move on. They become obsessed. Because when you disappear with grace, you deprive them of the one thing humans crave most after control: closure. They will replay every unspoken word. They will revisit every message you never sent. They will analyze every glance, every silence, every moment they overlooked, until your absence shines brighter than your presence ever did. This is how legends are forged. Not through staying, but through leaving at the precise moment. Your absence becomes more potent than your presence. Machiavelli once stated that it is preferable to be feared than loved, if one cannot embody both. But he didn't merely refer to political fear. He spoke of the psychological dread of loss, of being supplanted, of realizing that someone you underestimated had the fortitude to leave you behind, as if you were never significant at all. That is not just fear, that is devastation. And when delivered with grace rather than chaos, it becomes an art form. You don't need to shatter things to betray someone. Sometimes, the most profound betrayal is evolving into a version of yourself that no longer seeks their approval, attention, or affection. And you reveal this not through confrontation, but through silence, through absence, through vanishing. What if the ultimate betrayal was to vanish without a trace, leaving your absence echoing louder than your presence ever did? That's what renders it beautiful. Not because it spares feelings, but because it transforms your exit into a mirror. A mirror they cannot help but gaze into. A mirror that compels them to confront every way they failed you. But here's what Machiavelli would caution you about. If you want your exit to leave a mark, it must stem from composure, not emotion. You cannot depart in fury. You cannot plead for them to recognize you as you leave. You cannot slam the door because true power does not waver. Real betrayal does not falter. You exit cleanly. No explanations, no apologies, no final words. Just silence, and the shattering realization that you never needed them in the first place. You owe no loyalty to those who mistake your presence for permanence. You owe no explanations to those who failed to listen while you were still speaking. What you owe yourself is a ruthless, beautiful departure. And the moment you execute that, you cease to be the one who overstayed their welcome. You become the one they will never forget. There's a reason rulers never justify their decisions to the masses. Because justification diminishes power. It equalizes the sovereign with the subject. And that is precisely what Machiavelli warned against. When you part ways with someone, your silence should resonate like a royal edict. Final, impersonal, and beyond question. Because each time you explain, soften, or justify your departure, you grant the other person a platform to rewrite the narrative, to twist the story in their favor, to frame your exit as reactive instead of intentional, and that destroys the art. The beauty of betrayal, when executed with grace, transmutes the traitor into a legend, and the betrayed into a mere whisperer. They whisper about you because they can no longer speak to you. They recount your story to others because you never afforded them the chance to close the book. And in that whispering, you endure. Not as a villain, nor even as a hero, but as something far more perilous. A mystery. They will claim it was merely an emotional outburst or a fleeting lapse in judgment. Yet, what truly gnaws at them is the sting of being abandoned by someone who displayed no visible anguish. Someone who didn't need to shout, didn't feel the need to explain. Someone who departed with a serene gaze, lips sealed and heart undamaged. This kind of departure does more than wound. It brings humiliation. It whispers the truth. You never held true power over me. I merely allowed you to believe you did. And that realization will gnaw at them in silence, long after your presence has faded. Machiavelli asserted that every action should serve a calculated purpose. So, if you decide to leave, do not simply flee to evade discomfort. Depart to carve out a legend. This involves orchestrating your exit at a moment when your absence will create the most chaos. It necessitates ensuring your worth remains evident at the time of leaving, rather than waiting until you've been stripped bare or pushed to the edge. Weak exits are the realm of the forgotten. Beautiful betrayals are executed by those who still wield power and choose to walk away regardless. This distinction separates revenge from dominance. Revenge aims to inflict pain. Dominance leaves them hurting without ever intending to. Let me share a deeper strategy with you. What Machiavelli might term the silent scar technique. This is how you dismantle someone without ever launching an attack. First, you become a reflection of them. Align with their rhythm, their emotional patterns. Become so familiar, so comforting that they start to believe you will never leave. Then, gradually detach, not all at once. Introduce small moments of indifference, a smile that fades too quickly, a silence that lingers longer than it should. And when they begin to question, when their insecurities rise to the surface, you respond with nothing. No reassurance, no defense, only distance. And when the moment is ripe, you vanish. You slip away like a shadow fading from the wall at dusk, without sound, without warning, without hesitation. You leave not to punish, but to haunt. Do you want to know why this approach is so potent? It reveals their reliance on you. Your absence becomes a reflection of everything they refuse to confront. They recall the security they felt in your presence, the access they had, the invincibility of the bond they thought was unbreakable. And now, they find themselves in silence, replaying every unspoken word. They start to rewrite history in their minds. Perhaps I was too distant. Maybe I should have valued them more. Maybe I was the one who was weak all along. That's the allure of betrayal when executed in the Machiavellian fashion. It doesn't obliterate them instantly. It compels them to self-destruct. But here's where most falter. They hesitate at the first hint of guilt. They begin to soften the edges of their departure. They send a casual, just checking in message. They throw the rope back down after making their escape. Machiavelli would scold you for that because he understood that true power lies not in the act of leaving. It resides in the ability to remain absent. What is the single biggest question this video leaves you with? Let us know in the comments below. Let us know in the comments. If your betrayal is to be truly beautiful, it must be absolute. You cannot betray halfway. You cannot exit and then glance back in. You cannot depart gracefully only to return with an apology. That tarnishes the legend. That transforms a performance into a display of pity. And pity, as Machiavelli understood, is toxic to power. A truly Machiavellian betrayal is not impulsive. It's not born from panic. It's meticulously timed, perfectly framed, and emotionally detached. And the one left behind? They're not merely abandoned. They're left grappling with the notion that you always held the upper hand. Even when you smiled, even when you stayed, even when you whispered, "I'm not going anywhere." That's the emotional devastation. That's the chilling brilliance. It's the moment they recognize you were never truly theirs to lose. This serves as your caution. If you wish to depart like Machiavelli, you must extinguish the part of you that craves understanding, because understanding is emotional currency. The instant you offer it, they regain their sense of power. However, if you leave without mercy, armed with silence, strength, and impeccable timing, you don't just betray the individual. You betray the version of yourself that ever felt the need to stay. In doing so, you don't merely escape, you rise. There are betrayals that detonate, and then there are betrayals that resonate. Machiavelli understood which one held greater significance. The betrayal that explodes may provide momentary satisfaction. You scream, they scream, and perhaps someone weeps. But then it dissipates, much like all fireworks. It's loud, brilliant, and easily forgotten. Conversely, the betrayal that resonates, that's the one that shapes identity. That's the one that haunts someone's memory for years. Because it wasn't loud, It wasn't obvious. It was precise. It was the gradual realization that the person they underestimated was always 10 steps ahead. This was the level on which Machiavelli operated. He didn't just betray to exit. He betrayed to elevate, to transition from the known to the unknowable, from someone they once grasped to someone they can no longer define. And in that confusion, they suffer, because the human mind detests unfinished stories. And a beautiful betrayal? It's the ultimate unresolved narrative. It leaves them pondering, replaying, rewriting. They recount the tale, yet they hesitate at critical junctures. They stumble over timelines. They revisit their memories because they can't fathom how someone like you simply vanished. That disbelief morphs into obsession. Obsession transforms into reverence. And reverence, that's where your power is reborn. When you execute a beautiful betrayal, you don't just inflict pain. You reposition yourself within their psyche. You transition from the one who always cared to the one who was never truly theirs. That's power. Because the individuals who hurt us loudly, we tend to forgive. But those who wound us quietly, the ones who meet our gaze without flinching, they linger in our minds forever. What will you choose? What will you choose? They don't merely linger in our thoughts. They seize control of them. Every new relationship they embark on carries the shadow of your presence. Each time someone departs from their life, it serves as a haunting reminder of how you exited. Yet no one will ever replicate the artistry of your departure, and deep down, they will mourn not you, but the way you vanished. Let's delve deeper. Machiavelli wouldn't advise you to simply walk away from someone's life. Rather, he would instruct you to craft your absence into a powerful presence. You must ensure that the void you leave behind resonates more profoundly than your physical form ever did. How do you accomplish this? You don't abandon them in a fury. You don't provide them with closure. Instead, you depart leaving a trail of questions in your wake. That is the essence of it. You want your exit to instigate a transformation within them, forcing them to confront their own identity in your absence. Was I ever enough? Did they genuinely love me? How long were they plotting this? Did I ever truly know them? These inquiries are not mere emotional reactions. They are mental parasites. The only way for such thoughts to take root is through a carefully orchestrated, clean, and disorientingly composed exit. This is the kind of betrayal that turns your name into a trigger, a scent, a melody, a street, a silence. And suddenly, your presence is felt again. Not in a physical sense, but psychologically. Because while they strive to erase you from their memory, you become unforgettable. And this isn't an act of cruelty. It's a calculated design. You weren't meant to serve as someone's closure. You were intended to be their catalyst for change. Machiavelli would assert that betrayal is not a flaw in the balance of power. It is a fundamental aspect of it, particularly when executed by someone they least expect, the calm observer, the steadfast friend. When that individual departs, it shatters something within them that they didn't realize was fragile. Yet, here's the darkest truth. Most individuals fail to recognize how much they relied on you until your betrayal unfolds. They misinterpret your kindness as weakness, your reliability as dependency, and your presence as permanence. So when you finally betray them and leave without mercy, they are not just taken aback. They are laid bare. Your departure reveals a truth they've been evading. They took you for granted. They never truly deserved you. And they were the ones hindering your growth, not the other way around. This realization doesn't merely sting, it obliterates. This is why Machiavellian betrayal is an art form. It is not reckless or reactive. It is deliberate. It is executed with the same precision a general employs to secure victory in battle. Minimal effort yields maximum impact. You don't lash out, you don't offer explanations, and you certainly don't issue warnings. You smile, you disappear, and you let the silence convey what your words never could. Because sometimes, your power is not demonstrated by your duration of stay, but by your departure. Not in flames, but in frost. Not through destruction, but by creating distance. You become the scar that no one anticipated, the ghost that lingers in the room, the name they refrain from uttering because doing so feels like conceding defeat. And that is the crux of it all. They were never meant to keep you. They were meant to lose you and remember you, not as the one who overstayed their welcome, but as the one who left just in time. Here's a revelation that often goes unspoken. The most influential individuals in your life are not necessarily those who profess their love the loudest. They are the ones who departed without explanation and never looked back. You don't recall those who remained out of obligation. You remember the one who exited as if it were fate. The one who understood their worth so profoundly that they didn't require your validation. That is the level Machiavelli operated on. He didn't merely abandon kingdoms. He shattered minds and recalibrated power dynamics because, in his withdrawal, he became larger than life. People yearn for closure, believing it will aid their healing process. However, the reality is that most individuals don't seek healing. They crave reassurance. They want to convince themselves that they mattered, that they didn't ruin everything, and that the one who left still feels pain. Machiavelli would caution you against offering that reassurance. The moment you attempt to alleviate their suffering, you dismantle the myth. You transform your betrayal from a crafted masterpiece into a mere accident, from a calculated design into uncertainty. And true psychological power does not falter. It vanishes. Consider this. When someone repeatedly inflicts pain upon you, they come to expect your presence, believing you will always be there. They anticipate loyalty, they expect access, and they take your presence for granted, like the air they breathe, unseen, unappreciated, yet always available. So when you finally depart, not in anger, not with noise, but with quiet determination, they are left gasping for breath. You were the air they never learned to appreciate consciously. Now, they feel every passing moment without you. You didn't just leave. You illuminated your value by removing it. And that is what makes it unforgettable. This is the essence of Machiavelli's law. Beautiful betrayal is not solely about exiting. It's about doing so in a manner that forever transforms your identity. You become the one unafraid to walk away, the one who recognized when the space became constricting. You don't announce your departure. You own it. You don't linger for potential, and you don't negotiate with disrespect. You leave and allow the silence to resonate. For the more you speak, the more they can defend their actions. Yet when you exit in complete silence, they are left grappling with phantoms. And phantoms don't argue. They haunt, want proof. Think of that one person who wounded you deeply and never offered an explanation for their actions. What do you feel when you think of them? You can still recall their voice, the emptiness they left behind, and the haunting silence that followed. No matter how much time elapses, a part of you remains hungry for answers. This is the true potency of a stark betrayal. It freezes individuals in a moment, ensnaring them within your narrative. a tale you never concluded, leaving them unable to move forward. They might appear to laugh more heartily now, feigning indifference. They post cheerful photos, seeking distractions to fill the void. Yet, buried deep within them is the same question that lingers. Why did they leave in that manner? Such questions fester and rot, gnawing at one's sense of self-worth from the inside out. Machiavelli posited that the most impactful leaders are not merely conquerors. They are the ones who leave behind enduring legends. You cannot attain legendary status by explaining your actions like everyone else. If you strive for understanding or plead for recognition, you dilute your own power. True legends are crafted through deliberate misunderstanding, leaving space for others' imaginations to run wild. Transform your absence into an art form. When you depart with clarity and control, you do not simply exit, you carve a lasting silhouette into their lives. Every person they encounter afterward will feel like a mere shadow of what you once were. Echoes are harmless. Silhouettes, however, leave a sting. But here lies the most challenging aspect, the final trial that Machiavelli would insist you endure. You must embrace the possibility of being reviled. To be labeled as cold, heartless, or manipulative. To endure a profound misunderstanding without attempting to correct the narrative. For that is the price of power. Walk away, knowing they will never grasp the entire truth. Allow them to view you as the villain. It's what they need to find peace at night. Let them. While they rewrite their version of the story, you are busy crafting new ones. As they speak of you, you remain silent. And in that silence, you emerge victorious. Your goal is not to be remembered with fondness, but with reverence. You do not linger where you are needed. You leave when you are no longer respected. You are not here to offer gentle farewells. You aim to depart in a way that leaves a lasting impression. So, when the moment arrives, do not hesitate. Do not falter. Do not glance back. Stand firm. Embrace the quiet and disappear. If they ever inquire why you left in such a manner, remind them that they were not paying enough attention while you were present. You were not merely walking away. You were illustrating that they were never irreplaceable. And that realization is profound. Give us a like if you learned at least one new fact that genuinely changed your perspective today. You want to stay ahead of the curve in science and history? Subscribe now and make sure you don't miss any critical updates. And in the next video, we'll discover how to seize power without permission. Machiavelli's rule of silent acquisition.